The jug trailer, that thing is such a crazy thing to haul. And it's so cool to see, but man, it's a headache.
Do you have to, is it like parked in like a different, like a special storage garage or anything?
Yeah, it's parked in the back. We have a special garage, yeah, for our vehicles, and it's parked in the back along with everything else, yeah. And we have to hitch it and unhitch it every time we go for a remote. And
Has anybody forgotten to like hitch it before and it's gone
oh
like driven off
man,
with it?
there's one story that was passed down to me a long time ago, right when I started. Like, so when I first started, I was very lucky that I was trained by someone named Jenny. She was such a sweet lady who worked with the station, and she taught me how to do everything. And then she taught me the importance of like every little thing when it comes to doing remotes, like presentation and taking care of the equipment and all that stuff. And one of the thing was hitching and unhitching the jug. The story that she passed down to me, and it scared me to till this day. It still haunts me, and I don't even want to think about it. But I'll tell you the story. Is that one remote going down Highway 99, which is a big freeway that goes between Fresno, Tulare, Visalia, Bakersfield, all the way down, pretty much all the way down to LA. So it's a long stretch of freeway. And one remote, a guy was driving the jug trailer driving the jug van with the trailer in the back. And he was driving down the freeway. And next thing you know, you just see the trailer go right past him.
Oh no.
And that freaked me out. And then she told me the importance of always checking the hitch, make sure it's on there securely, because you don't want that to happen. And apparently it's a true story.
It's amazing that they trust the promo kids with stuff like this, you know what I mean? At the end of the
know
day.
like, because I think I was like 22 or something. I was just, I got out of college directly into this, and they're like, all right, we're going to leave you responsible for this giant promotional thing that looks like a jug and on a trailer. And we're going to let you mount that thing and see if you can get far with it. I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
And I was very nervous driving that thing. But like right now, I am so confident with that thing that I always have to tell myself, hey, Ray, you need to chill. You got to remember that's one big old sign that you're carrying around with you. You need to be careful. We call it the 14-foot jug, but it's actually 14.9. So there's only one bridge that I know, and it's in Fresno, that we can't drive under because it's too big. Like most people, they don't start traditionally like with school. Mostly it's just about who they know and what they can get into, right? Around, I would say 2014, 2013, I was in college. I just transferred back from the Art Institute of Los Angeles back to West Hills College in Lemoore, and Lemoore, California, for anyone who is not local. I'm from the Central Valley in Central California, the Fresno area. Coming back from going to school in LA, and just trying to find my place, just wanted to do something. I always knew I wanted to be a DJ of some kind. Right after high school, right into like 2010, 2011, I was DJing at clubs in a place called San Luis Obispo out on the Central Coast. And I loved it. It was just one of those things. I was just like, oh man, I would love to be a DJ. And it was right before like the whole EDM boom and all that stuff, before dance music was a big thing. I think that was the one thing that really drew me, was I was always like looking into music that hasn't been released, or mixtapes that haven't been like out in the open. And I always just wanted to play the freshest stuff. And around 2014, I was in a weird standstill, and I was just like, man, I really want to do something. And I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. I was taking classes for, two things, for social science and physical therapy.
Oh, wow.
And which was a complete left turn into radio. In 2015, I saw that there was a job opening over in Visalia for a company called Momentum Broadcasting, and I was immediately hopped onto the street team, and then over time I became the promotional assistant for Momentum Broadcasting. And I've been there for 7 years now.
Okay, so you're doing promotions there still?
Yes.
Do they even have events right now?
Yes, they do have events going on, mostly like, if you work in radio, we all got those typical meat sales at the parking lots.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
How much are yours right now? Are they 35 per?
I think it's 25 for 20.
I know that's where it's how it started, but there's some places that are like 40 now, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, it
there's some
keeps
place. Yeah,
rising.
I've noticed that there are some places where it's a little bit more, and then like in the more rural areas, it's a little bit less. I'm like, oh, okay. When you work for a small time radio station, you kind of have multiple hats. You do multiple things, and over the course of 7 years, I think I had my hands dipped in most of everything, and like production and being on air. Like, there's been some moments where I've been on air with some of my coworkers and done all kinds of like concerts and giveaways, and it was been very fun. I think that's the one thing I really loved was that it's a family owned radio station, and so it's its own little company. It's not owned by any conglomerate, any big company. It's just its own little station, like in the middle of Visalia, between two major markets, between Fresno and Bakersfield. It's like a little station between both of them, and they got a huge following, especially I would say K-Jug is probably the biggest one. 1067 K-Jug has been around for 40 something years. I was super introverted, super awkward, but it took me a while for me to break out of that, to be more open. And as I started to feel more open and more confident with it, I started to take that and bring it into my own thing. And that's when I started to do Sin Zone, my own podcast and my own show. And I started doing shows for that. And that's brought up the other, I guess, radio persona of myself to
Right.
come out,
Were they just not like giving you enough time on the air? You think so? That's kind of why you started doing stuff on the side.
No, it was mostly just I've always had podcasts. I think I
Oh,
was one of those people that just had a like before before I thought about getting into radio, and while I was still in college in 2012, I started a show called Power Talk Radio with two of my really close friends, and it was kind of like a very off the cuff like podcast. It was just me and my friends usually just talking smack on the microphone, just like what, just talking about whatever we wanted, and it was
but
mostly
early on podcasting.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very early before like nowadays everyone and their grandma has a podcast now, but
Mm-hmm.
but before podcasting was so like easy to do. I was one of those people that wanted to do it before anyone else did. And that show did pretty well in the local scene, where
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of my friends, a lot of family members, and they like threw it out in the open. So a lot of people from the Central Valley really heard it, to the point where it made it like a little small little impact in my little community. And I was just like, okay, well, this is cool. But once I got into professional radio, once I got the actual job at Momentum, I kind of like severed it away from everything, and I kind
Uh-huh.
of like pushed it away because it was a little too off the cuff, a little too raunchy for,
Uh,
for for the professional scene, and so I just had to sever that part away and get away from that. And they still, from this day, a couple of my friends, they still bug me about bringing it back, but I'm like, nah. If I were to bring it back, I would have to. It would be censored central, like just, man, too many bleeps for me to edit.
Do you feel that having that experience before you even got into radio helped with any part, whether it's dealing with sound equipment and stuff like that?
Definitely, yeah. I believe it was because that passion is what got me the job, because that's what I was pushing to my two bosses, Randy and Rick. Like, I'm like, hey man, you're like, I love radio. Here's my podcast. Here, listen to it. A week later, they call me. Yeah, come by. We got a remote that we got to do, and they just kind of threw me into the sharks.
And that's a perfect example of why, like, when people ask me like how to get a radio job, I just tell them like make content. Like if you don't have something, like if you don't have a job currently that you can't make an air check, then do something exactly. That's essentially exactly what you did. Made an air check and had content ready to go for them.
Yeah, I think for anyone in media, they have to have like a portfolio for media. It could be anything, like videos, podcasts, vlogs, even like nowadays, TikTok videos, Instagram videos are still pretty good to have, just to show like, hey, this is what I did, and look how many views and likes this thing has.
Are you happy in the market that you're in, like doing what you're doing?
I do love where I work. I
Mm-hmm.
do love the station that I work for. I have other friends who work for other stations in bigger cities like Chicago and Miami. They tell me that they have no time. They have no time on their hands. I feel kind of blessed knowing that I live in a smaller market, because it does give me a little bit of breathing room to do other things. If I was in a bigger market, things would my hands would be tied. I would
Mm-hmm.
have no time on my hands. I live in Coalinga, which is a really small town, about an hour away from the radio station. So I have an
Oh.
hour commute to the radio station, um, pretty much every time I have to go over there. But the city where it's at in Visalia, it's a really beautiful city, and I love that city. And I've even like talked to them about moving over there and just just kind of just staying put there because I love that city so much. And so I'm very happy for being in that market. And then plus the sense of community feels a little bit better. I know a lot of the people in the area. And they all know me, they all know I'm the guy that works at the radio station. So I never get any crap from anybody, and everyone kind of like treats me like a little bit extra.
And you like do some gaming on Twitch and stuff like that. Did you get into that like over the pandemic?
Yeah, it was something during the pandemic. I think everyone kind of went through a moment of clarity when they had a little time off. I was definitely one of those people that had that kind of a moment. I decided to put down a little bit of money from my savings into building a new computer, a complete streaming setup, and yeah, and I started streaming on Twitch, mostly just to keep in contact with friends. It was just one of those things where you weren't able to see any of your friends, got to see any
Mm-hmm.
family at the time, especially during the lockdowns in the early midst of the pandemic. And I'm not a social person at all, to be clear. I'm a very introverted person.
Okay, me
Uh,
too. So
but this was a way for me to feel like, okay, I'm doing something with my friends and still communicating with them, making sure that they're okay. And we just started playing video games online, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get onto this Twitch thing. I'm gonna start streaming, and I've been daily streaming for, I would say, about maybe a year and a half.
so now you're like into UX. So tell me about that side. I'm like super curious about that.
I decided I wanted to do something a little bit extra on the side. Um, and I guess I don't know why. I was just like in a mood where I want to do something with computers.
Mm.
I've always had a passion for computers, designing, web page design,
Okay.
um, anything to do with like systems on a computer. I've always had a passion for. And I'm kind of a little bit of a little dabbler in hacking and modding and all that stuff. So I've
I
always
love
done
that.
a lot of that stuff on the side. I kind of wanted to do something in that. So I found a company called Bitwise Industries out of Fresno. And through a mutual friend named Randy Jacob, he's a photographer and a videographer for a guy in the synthwave scene of artists and musicians that I play on my podcast.
Okay.
So that's how I knew him and I knew his work. I found out that he was working for this company as a photographer and a videographer. And I asked him, like, hey, man, is this company's pretty cool. It had a very early Facebook, Google tech vibe. Everyone's
Okay.
so chill. Everyone, you go to their office, they got like beanbag chairs, free food, like it was that kind of a vibe. And I was like, man, that company looks kind of cool. And I looked into it. I did a lot of research into the company, and I asked, like, hey, man, are they doing any hiring for like for coders or mostly it was for coding, for development? And they were like, oh yeah, man, just look on their website and see what they got. So I looked, and they were like looking for like senior developers, like people high up there who know like stuff like Python, high CSS, and stuff that I didn't feel comfortable that I can do. But then I saw that they had a workers training program
Okay.
to help people learn how to do web page design, JavaScript, CSS, C++, and all kinds of different other coding languages.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, let me see how much the class costs to do it, and let me see what I can do to brushing up.
The class is within the company, you said?
Yeah, the class
Okay.
was with the company. Yeah, because that's just something that they do. They do a workforce program,
Okay.
and you pay to take the class, and then at that you kind of get an idea how to do programming, development, and all that stuff. And it's almost like a boot camp. It felt
Sure.
like a boot camp, but it was very like on hand. I was very lucky. I had a good instructor and taught me like some new stuff, because I felt like so out of touch. Because in high school, by the way, I graduated in 2010, so that's still. I feel like that was ages ago. But I took web page design,
Okay.
and I took Flash, which Flash is dead if people
Oh
don't know about.
yeah, that's
So
right.
so I had to relearn some new stuff, and I wanted to brush up. So I decided to take the class, just because I had like, I wasn't like, I'm not going to lose anything. I'm just going to pay to just to learn something.
Yeah.
So I took the class, passed it, got through it. And one of the people from HR from Bitwise offered me an apprenticeship for the company. And I was just like, oh, I did not know that this was a thing. And so they have an apprenticeship program that pay you to learn more while you work for the company.
Wow.
So I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm down for that. And consulted with a few of my coworkers at the radio station to make the adjustments for me to work there and also for the radio station. And yeah, and I just been working for Bitwise, or as for the apprenticeship, it's called AlphaWorks.
Okay.
So I've been working for them for about, I would say, 6 months now.
So it's like somebody that they're a partner with?
It's their company, but they have a company specifically for apprentices.
Oh, okay.
So it's a company within a company. So they have a different apprenticeships for different things that they feel like that person could be good at. So they got one for like a call center. They got one for JavaScript. They got one for Python. They got one for cybersecurity. When I did the interview, they thought I'd be good at design from what I was already capable of doing. So that's where they stuck me in. They stuck me in that apprenticeship for UI UX. And I had no idea what UI UX was. And I was freaking out. They were like telling me like programs that I had to learn how to use and programs that I had to figure out and like systems I had to figure out. But I've been very lucky to have a good instructor his name is Alberto Sandoval, who's been my lead, and he's been gradually teaching us everything that we needed to know. And I feel like, today I can feel confident to say that I could build an entire website design and app design from scratch. And UI UX, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, it means for user interface and user experience. So you are building something for a user in mind. So you're the one that, every time when you look at an app, like you see the icons and stuff like that, and scrolling, how easy it is to get to one thing to another, that's a UI UX designer who made that. And then it gets passed on to a developer to put it on a phone. You don't realize how certain apps do better than others. And I think that's like a good example is like TikTok. TikTok is such an easy interface. It's like one of the most easiest interfaces that you can use. It's just one thing, just scroll up. That's it. That is it. That's all you have to do. And it's so easy that my grandma and my grandpa are both on TikTok watching videos on the daily. That's how easy it is. And that's how that's kind of like my inspiration into UI UX, to make something very easy for someone to use, for something that is as complicated as sending a video, a 15 to 30 second video, you know?
It's crazy, like all the little details that you just don't think of that go behind all that. And then I feel like it's mind blowing then when you step out of it and then you yourself start using other apps and websites and you're like, do they have any UX designer here?
Right. Like, did they figure any of this out? Did they know how long I'm going to be on this page? Like, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I do think about that a lot, especially when I started working for this company. It became apparent that everything that I touch, I'm like, oh man, this could have been way better. Even if I go on like a website now, I feel insulted. Like I'm like, oh man, they definitely did not get no UI designer for this.
You look at some of these radio apps and you're like, how is this a radio station?
Yeah, it's funny that you said that. One of the first like practice designs I did was a revised version for the Hits 1049 website. And I did like a little small application for it also. That was one of my first little side projects. And it was just something that I thought about, like, oh man, this could be way better. But again, you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of radio stations, they would just go to like some kind of tech consulting company and they just pretty much hand over like all the API stuff to them and let them handle it. And a lot of them probably don't have any idea how any of this stuff works. And yet I think it's very important that more radio people should know more about this stuff, because that's where it's all heading. I love the idea of a radio station having a website or an application that allows them to stream the radio station onto their phone, but also get the on-demand podcast from the hours of the DJs that they're on. You know, that would make it so much easier with the music. But I can also see the complications with the music part, but you know, copyright and all that stuff. But other than that, that's just something that I would love to see, but no company has been able to do it. See, I've been very lucky because in my department it's only two guys. It's just me and my manager Tony.
Okay.
It's just we're the entire promotions team,
Oh,
and
geez.
he can pretty much manage most of the stuff on his own. But whenever he needs the extra hand, I'm there. That's the kind of gist of our little partnership that we have at the radio station right now.
Seems like you have a bunch of things, between Twitch and the pod, because you're still doing your other podcast right now, right?
Yeah, so
The
I'm
music.
still doing Sin Zone every week, every Sunday at 8 p.m. Pacific Coast Standard Time.
Okay.
New episode every week. It's just the latest of the synthwave music. It's a mix show that I
Okay.
do every week, mostly dedicated to the synthwave scene. If you don't know what synthwave is a music genre dedicated to the 80s culture, retro style music, and has very certain aesthetics that make it like have those nostalgic retro vibes.
I've seen your logo before, and that's how it makes me feel for sure.
Yeah, it's been something I've been doing since 2016, so it's been very very long show, and it's helped me do like tons of things. I've done like shows, MC shows, got a concerts. I even went and did a show down in London, England. I got to
Oh wow.
co-host a show over with my good friends Joe and Rob for the Forever Synth show over in London at their radio station. It was pretty cool to go
Wow.
there.
That's amazing. And yeah, people don't realize that, with doing a consistent putting out content, how that can just open to cool opportunities for you like that.
Yeah, it built a community. I was very heavily involved in that community right from the beginning, and it was just something that it started because the origin or the genesis of Sin Zone was like I was at the beach one day and I was like looking through all kinds of different podcasts and different shows, and I'm like, why is there no like dedicated music synthwave show? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do that, and that's where the idea came from. And the name Sin Zone just kind of just popped in my head while I was sitting at the beach.
That's so cool.
I would say I've been very happy of where this road is leading, and I'm pretty sure it's just gonna go upwards from here.
That, and I'm excited to keep watching your journey.
I'll tell you what my dream job
Oh,
is
I love
that
it.
I want to be able to work as an online radio DJ and also as a UI UX designer, but also like doing freelance stuff also,
Hmm.
but from anywhere. Like I want to travel. I want to be able to just like I want to be in Tokyo one week and then I want to be in Barcelona the next week.
Oh, that's cool.
That's what I strive to do. That's what I want to do. Like
Oh, okay.
I want to be able to just go anywhere I want and not be bounded by like just one place. And that kind of sounds like I want to be like a nomad, but I don't want to deal with like the harsh reality of it. I just kind of just want to be able just to go one place and get on a plane and go to the next nice hotel at the other place.
I mean, that's so doable now. The equipment's now gotten cheaper. It's gotten smaller, so it can be more portable for those type of things.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I strive to do, is hopefully just to build enough of a brand to be where I could just sell a show and just be like, okay, this is my show right here. I'll give it to you every week. Like I would love to do that. But again, like you said, a lot of radio stations don't like to invest in talent. And now they're just like, they just buy it into syndications, which I completely understand because it's cheaper for them to do that. But it does lose the local feel of it. And I just like the idea of being able to be heard on multiple stations. I don't want to be necessarily syndicated, but I do like the idea of like someone paying me to do different shows.
Sure.
Like if someone would just like, hey, you want to do voice track for a station in London, or do you want to do a show in Miami? I'm like, okay, yeah, I got you. That's something that I can do. Especially if I'm just doing this remotely from my computer or at home, of course, I would love to still do streaming. I would love to just be able just to get on and just stream anytime I want.
Yeah.
So technically I would have some kind of home base to do that, because taking, this whole system with me would be crazy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I do have a laptop that is very capable of doing most of or majority of all this stuff. I could just take a camera, just probably get another portable screen. I'm good. My microphone, That's all I need. And I feel such like a millennial saying that. It's just like one of those things that everyone like woke up during the pandemic and like they like that's what they want. They want the lifestyle, not necessarily the job, not necessarily like a whole ton of money. They just want a livable wage for them to live out their life the way they want to.
And
And
to be a little
so
happy doing it. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and
And I don't
so
think there's
that's
anything wrong with that, but it's non-traditional, so I think it scares, some of the older people,
yes, yeah,
you
that's
know.
exactly the thing. And I've always been that guy to break traditions. I've always been a rebel. I've always been the guy that just like I just don't care what other people think and just do it.
That's awesome.
Um, and that's what I've been striving for. In fact, I'll be going to back to London in a few months, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Are you going to
and
do any more radio stuff out there
I
too?
don't know.
Uh,
That's just kind of like out. That's still out there. I'm going there mostly just to kind of get some just to get more culture in because the last time I was there, it was during it was still kind of like right in the mix of like their second lockdown, so everything
okay.
was just opening up and a lot of things were still closed. So I didn't really get to experience as much while I was
Hmm.
there. So this time I actually have a longer place that I can stay at for a little longer period of time.
Okay.
So my plan is just to work remotely from there and just kind of take it all in and then come back after summer when it's not like 100 and some degrees here.
A few years ago it was something that like that would be like, what are you crazy? That'd be
Yeah,
just
like
no
it,
way.
I mean, to think, it's still, and because I come from a traditional family, my family's a traditional Hispanic family, and
Yeah.
they like, man, this guy lost his mind. Like that's the kind of like, that's the mindset that they have. But they also understand that's what I'm trying to pursue. That's my overall goal. That's to have a lifestyle to where I can just be wherever I want, even if I'm just at home. I could just work at
Yeah.
home and just be able to go and venture out and go see other things and be inspired by other things. Because that's the other thing about being a designer. You have to have some inspiration. You have to have some ideas of what other people see and get to see it from a different perspective. And I think that's very important. And a good friend of mine who's like a really like in deep Buddhist type
Hmm.
guy, told me that one thing that he does every year is to go somewhere new.
Okay.
That's just something that he does, and I made that a part of my life is to go somewhere new every year.
Okay.
And so along with that, I figured, well, I'm in a good position now to where I can work wherever I want already. So I'm just gonna just do that and just go for it, just for a few months, and just come back, and it's not gonna kill me, It's like it's just a little adventure.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. Like I love
Yes,
like
not
doing
a
these.
problem. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I anything to do for the Radio Fam and just to help out and yeah, I put a public service announcement. If any people in radio need like advice or anything, hit me up.
Yeah.
I'm an open book. There was a radio station, um an old radio station from Fresno. It was called 1037 KRZR. And it was an old school like rock heavy metal rock station that everyone loved. Like it was like the Valley's like biggest, like most one of the most successful radio stations, and because it was probably one of the most popular. And I loved it as a kid. It was like one of those radio stations I remember fondly as a kid. And even
Mhm.
though I wasn't a metalhead or anything like that, I loved like that station, the persona of the station.
Yeah.
And it had like great promotion. They had a great logo. They had a great mascot. They had a mascot with
They
the
were
it
a
was
good
called
radio brand, sounds like.
brand. Yes,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
exactly, a great brand. And then sometime in the early 2000s, it just got washed under the rug. It just disappeared. It got rebranded. Another station took over the call letters, and and I felt so bad for that station. But recently, an Instagram account came out for that old school radio station, and that
Ooh.
radio and all the posts is just them making fun of all the other radio stations right now in the valley, saying that they're
Oh.
not as bad, not as cool as them, and
Ooh. Do I
it's
follow them? What's their Instagram?
I think it's 1037 KRZR because I was just like, oh, this is
Fresno's
hilarious.
best fucking rock station. So
Yes, that
do you
is
think it's
it.
like coming back, or do you think it's just like a throwback account to like
I
highlight
think
some
it's a
of
throwback account. I think someone's just running it. They
Okay.
just they remembered and they just kind of have it.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
105 won the Blaze and New Rock 104.1. Yeah, they're like the leading rock stations right now in the valley, and this Instagram is just tearing them a new one.
Do you think it's a radio person or just an old fan of the station?
I hope it's a radio person because that would be more hilarious. I hope it's not just some like random Joe who just remembered the old
Oh,
days of KRZR.